This is Talk to Me. Your host, Joshua Toomey, bring you epic rants, anecdotes, and interviews with heavy hitters from hardcore
A new life begins!
to hair metal. This is Talk to Me.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into Talk to Me. This is episode 246. The guest this week is Paolo from Trivium. Trivium have a great new album coming out, What the Dead Men Say, coming out April 24th, Roadrunner Records. It is their 8th record for Roadrunner Records, and you know, growing up, if your album had that Roadrunner Records logo on it, it was going to be good, and this is no different. What the Dead Men Say by Trivium, one of the best albums they've put out, and they've been on a streak, man. The Sin and the Sentence, Silence in the Snow. What can you say, man? Trivium always putting out quality stuff over a 20-year career. And it's great to have Paolo on. 2 bass players in a row. Dustin from August Burns Red on the last episode, Paolo in this episode. And maybe we can keep that streak going. Let's have a little love for the bass players for a change. But in this interview, we get into the recording of What the Dead Men Say, recording with Josh Wilbur, lyrics. Paolo writes a lot of the lyrics for the album. Bass tone, what an amazing bass tone Paolo gets, and all that great stuff. What they're up to in this coronavirus shutdown of the world. Hopefully you guys are taking shelter, doing a little social distancing yourself, checking out some podcasts, checking out my new show with Ian Wadley, formerly of the Rock and Metal Combat podcast, over there on Diablos and Podcastica. Make sure you guys are checking that out, and we're having a lot of fun doing that. But it was kind of cool. I like the answers that that Paolo gave about, you know, he's from Florida, living in Chicago now, and how he just feels it in his bones to get ready for any kind of catastrophe. So we're not going to try to sell some t-shirts. We're not going to try to do anything else on this episode. Without any more of my ramblings, let's check out some classic Trivium, talk to Paolo, listen to Catastrophist, get into a Rob Rivera's pick from the kit. We will check in with Rob, and then I will talk to you guys momentarily.
It I'll take everybody else down. Everybody else down with me. I know that death approaches fast. What's the purpose if this life won't last? Rolling everyone down with me. Do I have this love for the world to see? Do I take everybody else down? Everybody else down with me. I know that death approaches fast. What's the purpose if this life won't last? Rolling everyone down with me. Pulling everyone down with pulling everyone down with
All right, guys, we've got a Trivium bass player Paolo Gregoletto on the line with a great new album, What the Dead Men Say. Man, Paolo, it is so great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Stoked to be talking about album number 9.
I know, right? That's great. When I read that, I was just like, wow, because I've been, a fan of Trivium since album number 1, so I can't believe it's already number 9.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, it definitely feels like we've been at it for a bit, but then sometimes I'm just like, wow, like rack them up really quick.
And also all 9 of them have been on Roadrunner, correct?
Yeah, excuse me. The first one, Ember to Inferno, was on Life Force Records, but pretty much everything from Ascendancy to this new record has been on Roadrunner. So we've had a pretty long streak with the label, which I feel like is kind of unheard of in some ways, to stick around that long with one label.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bands that, almost per album, they're on a different label. So
Yeah.
But it almost kind of seems to be the Trivium way, too. From having Matt on the show so many times, he seems to be very, I guess he likes to get in a rhythm or a pattern or a routine, I guess, that it is. And so it seems to be very, very Matt Hafey of him to kind of stay on the same label.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely lucked out because, I mean, there was points when the label was, like, transitioning from being an indie label to being fully owned by, like, Atlantic Records, that any of that kind of stuff could have fallen apart, but we were able to kind of weather the changes. And I mean, if anything, it's been very similar to just our career, which is just always kind of rolling with things, and no matter what kind of came our way, we've always been able to kind of stay afloat. And we're very lucky for that. Luck probably has a little bit to do with that, but also just I think we've tried to stay grounded and, try to just stick it out, no matter what was thrown at us.
I was listening to a great interview the other day with Monty Connor, and he was talking about all the history of Roadrunner and all the great bands that have been on Roadrunner, including yourselves. But I mean, just to walk into the offices and see Typo Negative and Sepultura and Fear Factory and Deicide and Obituary, it's just got to be mind blowing for you, correct? Yeah,
I mean, definitely back in the early days when Roadrunner was still the indie label and they still at their old office, there was definitely that kind of, I would say that sort of magic of like walking in and being like, wow, this is the label that signed all of this classic stuff. I mean, really was like, a genre unto itself in a lot of ways, because I feel like Roadrunner, for a long time, if Roadrunner put something out, that like people kind of knew that this was something that you got to pay attention to. So that was like a really special moment. And I mean, I think our career wouldn't have been nearly as big if we didn't have a label like them, because they really helped push us overseas with just all of the like offices they had. And it was like a worldwide vision. And, a lot of labels at that time, maybe had like some big distribution overseas, but the focus that they were able to give us over there was like, second to none.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a time, and I know we're roughly the same age, so I know going to a record store and flipping over an album and seeing that Roadrunner Records logo, you would give it a chance. Maybe if aside if it was on another label, you might pick the Roadrunner Records record over that one just to give it a chance. And 9 times out of 10, you were going to get a gem of a record.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing for us.
Well, the new album, What the Dead Men Say, first off, being a bass player, talking to a bass player, the bass tone on this album cuts through this thing, and it just sounds amazing because in a lot of modern production, sometimes you lose that bass in there, but man, you definitely it almost sounds like you mixed the album.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got to give of course Josh Wilbur all the credit for making all the pieces fit together so well, because he's incredible at that. But the bass tone is literally what I use live. It's my Kemper, which is like an Ampeg profile. It's my Warwick. It's all the stuff that I use in my live setting that, it just sounds great. And when we were recording, we really didn't try to go too far from what we do live. And I think that was kind of a big, big thing for it, and, Matt and Corey's guitar tones fit very well with my bass tone. So I feel like, it makes things just sit in the mix. You don't have to struggle to hear the bass at all.
Do you find it easier to go into a studio with the Kemper, with the new technologies that you have now, so you're not spending an entire day or entire couple of days trying to dial in a bass tone?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way my tone sounds live, and it's kind of one of those things of if you got something you like, start with that as opposed to throwing a bunch of new things into the mix just for the sake of it. But the guitar tones were the same. We monitored with the Kempers, and then we reamped with actual amps. So we didn't want to lose time messing with stuff.
And reading about this, it seems like you guys kind of got this album down before you went into record it. Was that the process? Do you guys actually get in a room and jam a lot before you record? That's kind of a lost art.
Yeah, I mean, we do probably. I'd say we're in the jam room as long as we're in the studio. So we pretty much did 21 days worth of writing on our own, jamming in the rehearsal room that we have. And we split that up over 3 different sessions because we were still touring in the summer of last year. So we were kind of doing some writing before, doing a little bit after, and kind of split it up into 3. And we did 3 songs per session. And it was really getting everything super tight and getting all the details hammered out before we got into the studio with Josh. And our pre-production with Josh was literally a day and a half, which is set up everything. And just we had Alex on an electric kit, and we just recorded a scratch track of everything. And then we just started recording everything from there. And then, did drums last this time around out in LA. And yeah, I mean, the writing process is the most important part of it. So we make sure we spend a lot of time. And, you can't sacrifice that. You come up with some of the coolest ideas when you're with your bandmates in the room. It's hard to do on the laptop.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've talked about that before on this, but it's being in a room with somebody, and even if they're just tuning, all of a sudden they'll just hit something, and you're like, what was that? You're like, I don't know. I was just trying to get a tone. You're like, no, play that riff again, and, do this on the drums. And, you start building a song that way. And some of those happy accidents are lost, when you're just sitting at home on a laptop.
Yeah. I mean, of course, a lot of our ideas start on the laptop because Matt, Corey, and I will be writing riffs and stuff. And I just think with the technology, it's super easy to kind of hash out kind of a song structure and put some nice sounding drums and stuff to it. But I think it's now with Alex in the band, I almost feel it's a waste of time to really do anything with the drum side of stuff when I'm writing. I'll have a good beat to kind of go to, and if I have some crazy idea in my head, I'll do it. But I feel Alex is such a phenomenal drummer that it would be a waste to not push him with the writing and let him go crazy with it and see where he can go. Because I'll have some cool ideas now and then for like the drum part, but like for the most part, I would rather let someone with the experience and the chops do it. You know, I'd rather stick to like the songwriting on our end, like the guitar, bass, vocal, melody stuff, and let Alex do the drum stuff as much as he wants.
Well, that's the thing I noticed online looking at just watching Catastrophist on YouTube earlier. You know, every other comment was, you know, thank God Alex is on 2 albums, or don't let Alex leave, or make sure you know, all that stuff. I mean, it seems like he's a definite fan favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, of course, every drummer that we played with has been talented and like has brought great stuff to the, excuse me, to the different albums they were on.
Mm-hmm.
I think Alex is just, you know, he was able to come in and like, you know, before we even recorded the last record, he did a tour with us. And so we got to kind of like, you know, try to play a bunch of different songs from different records and kind of, I don't know, get into the mindset of like each guy on those records and like what made those drum parts work on the records. And like, you know, so we kind of got to like, it was kind of like catching him up to speed on like the history of Trivium. And then we went in and recorded the record. So I think he's left his own mark on the albums, but you know, it's good to know where the band came from. So you kind of have that in the back of your mind. And, you know, it's good. Like if we're able to reference something from an older record, he knows what we're talking about or what that means. And I think, you know, with this record, he's going to really, I think, surprise a lot of people, because everyone knows he's a great drummer, but you know, he even surprises me with some of the stuff he pulls off. And I'm, you know, really blown away with his performance on this record. And I think the drums sound incredible.
Josh Wilbur can make, you know, he's kind of like the Roadrunner records of today. You know, you turn around and you see that he produced something, and, you know, you're going to give it a chance because, you know, at the end of the day, it's at least going to sound really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, I think he's kind of a hidden gem of a producer. You know, he's done so much stuff. And I think, you know, if you started looking at the credits of a lot of modern stuff out right now, from production to mixing, you know, he's all over the place. But that's kind of a testament to him, is that he doesn't have like a set sound of his, which I think is really like a great thing, because he can go from us to Lamb of God to any band he works with, and every band retains their character and what they are, but he makes them sound like the best version of what they are. And, you know, for us, it's always been like having this sort of clarity to our mixes and this big sound. You know, I've always, like, our live sound, I think for the last, like, you know, almost decade has been pretty solid and big. And it's like, I always want the record to match the way we do sound live, you know. And I feel like in the early days, people used to, like, you know, obviously when you're first starting out, you don't have all the great sound guys and stuff. So it's like your records are like sound a little better than you do live. But over the years, it kind of flipped around, and I'm like, I want to make sure our records sound as good as we do live.
And that, yeah, you're talking about, you know, the stuff he does for Lamb of God. I mean, I think he did a masterful job with the latest Soulfly album, you know, kind of almost making them sound like Soulfly again, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say just from our own experience with him, he, you know, he comes in, he kind of reads the situation, he listens to the music, and he adapts to what the band's doing. And I think it's, you know, long term for him, it's great, because it's like, you know, there's so many bands you could work with, and it's like when you have a specific sound, it's like, you know, you might have a couple good years, but then people kind of like want to hear something different. So I think for us it's perfect, because, you know, when we go into a record, you know, we know how Josh is going to work with us, and it's you know, for the last 2 records, it's been great.
The title of the album, What the Dead Men Say, it comes from a short story by Philip K. Dick. Where did you find that? You know, are you a reader all the time? You know, is that something you do on tour all the time, looking at stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like to pass the time with reading on tour and at home, if, you know, when I have a moment, you know, and it's kind of nice to like give yourself a break from reading the internet and, you know, get like that kind of short burst of like dopamine of like reading comments and craziness online. And I don't know, reading just kind of chills you out. You know, you got to really kind of hunker down and, you know, read a bit more than just like a few bursts of words at a time. And I love science fiction. I love Philip K. Dick. And, you know, I've read a bunch of his stuff over the last few years, but you know, when I'm like coming up with lyric ideas, like even before I have music, like I just kind of write stuff down in a little note thing on my iPhone, and I, I'll just keep a list of things. And I found that title, and I actually was looking for the story, but it was really hard to find online. But it was the inspiration for another book he did years later, which I had read. So I kind of had an idea of what the story was going to be about, but I loved the title. And I was like, that's going to be cool. I'm sure I could use this on something. And so I kept it. And then, when we started working on the demo in the rehearsal room, that one was actually kind of crazy because we actually had two demos that we used. It was one of Matt's and one of mine, because when we first started, we were like, okay, we need more riffs and we need some more parts. We need to work this out a little bit more. And we wrote the chorus on the spot in the rehearsal room, and I had the title, and we just we started playing the chords and getting the vibe of what we wanted. And, Matt and I kind of were like trading off singing parts to kind of like figure out the cadence and the melody. And that was really fun because a lot of times, we might come into the studio with like a chorus idea in your head, but doing it on the spot was fun because that was like, a nice challenge for us to put together.
And with you writing a lot of the lyrics, are you writing to his melodies, or are you giving him words and he's fitting them? How do you guys work that?
It's kind of a mix of things. Like with Catastrophist, I had a lot of those melodies and lyrics like coming into the rehearsal, and that was one of the first tracks we did. Like I felt really confident with that one, had a lot of stuff to it. So, it was nice because we'd start playing, and then after we all like learned the riffs and kind of like the structure of parts, we started working on the lyrics and melodies right away. So I knew if a part I had written was going to work or not. So then I could like go home that night, back to Corey's place where I stay when I'm in Orlando, and I'll just kind of rewrite parts if it doesn't work, or if we didn't have a part that day and like say Matt sang some melodies, I could kind of like fit something to that later or just have it in my head. So it's kind of a mix of things. And sometimes even Corey will just have a title for a demo that just is great. And I'll just kind of like reverse engineer it a little bit where, he'll maybe tell me what he got it from or what it was about, like whatever the thing he got it from was about. And I'll kind of spin it in a different way maybe and just write lyrics and just get creative with it. And I think having all these different ways of getting lyrics and melodies has been so beneficial because, I don't know, like just doing a few songs, even with just lyrics, is like, it's very tiresome because like you're trying not to like retread ideas and come up with new stuff. And I've found the way we work now, it's like we all kind of like bring something to the table, and it really makes making the record fun, and you don't feel as burnt out by the end of it.
And with Catastrophist, I did want to ask you, basically, what are the lottery numbers? Because, the song is so obviously happened before all of this pandemic and coronavirus and stuff. But you put out a song like this, and we never had a chance, and it's everything's what I feel are collapsing and all that. Just everything is pretty prophetic at this point, man. And how are you kind of feeling, kind of putting out a song like this in a time like this, almost in a timely manner?
I would say, I feel like, in some ways, of course, it feels like very timely and prescient, but I feel like, all the stuff that I was like reading and thinking about when I was writing it, was, calling, I wouldn't say calling like this particular moment, but like just similar situations, just like, things the world faces. And, it's kind of just like maybe human nature. And like, when people talk about like books from the past being very prophetic, it's like, they were writing about their experience at that time. And, in some ways things never change. Maybe you get like a different version of something that's happened, like, the old saying that, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. So maybe that was it. Maybe I just happened to like get the right rhymes this time that were going to fit with the times, like exactly. And, it's always hard when you're writing, you're like, for me, it's like you're writing a year or two in advance of a record coming out. And I'm always like, is this going to feel like relevant then? Like, have we written something that's just going to feel like old news at that point. And so there's always that kind of balance of things. And like, you don't want stuff to be so bland and like, you know, generic that it could fit anything, because then it's like, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have any impact. But I mean, I guess with the record coming out in the midst of like a real crisis and, you know, not having any touring on the horizon until the summer, which, you know, fingers crossed is going to hopefully maybe continue. But it's like, you know, just having that sense of doubt with that is even stressful. But I'm like, I'm happy we have a music that's coming out and videos coming out that are going to, you know, resonate in a lot of ways, but hopefully, you know, make people like excited and happy that something is coming out in the midst of it and like not stopping. So we made a choice, you know, that we weren't going to delay this record at all, even though a lot of records have been pushed back. Or just like, you know what, if there's any issues with like shipping of like CDs or vinyls, which luckily for us, like all our vinyl stuff is already at the warehouse, so we don't have to worry about that. But like, if anything happens out of our hands, like things can go online and streamed, and if it affects record sales and charts, it doesn't matter. We're not going to even worry about it. We just want to put it out there and, you know, give something to people while they're sitting at home, hopefully, and, you know, just kind of waiting this out and hopefully being smart and safe and healthy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there are a couple of tours that are announced for current right now that have been canceled. But I mean, you know, when you guys get announced alongside Megadeth and Lamb of God for a summer Shed tour, I mean, that's an amazing tour that we hope all to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we had to cancel our Asian tour. We were supposed to be in like, you know, we'd be in like Thailand today or Singapore. And,
oh wow!
You know, so it's a real bummer to not be out there touring. And, you know, we were really excited to debut the new music live and all that. And it's kind of a weird thing to think about, like, you know, there's a possibility we might not be playing live for quite a bit of time. And it's hard to think about, because it's like we've been doing this so long and so consistently that it's weird to like be unable to do what we do, you know. And I think, of course, you know, you have to like worry about people's safety first, of course, and our own safety. But, you know, it is a bummer to think about. But, you know, at the end of the day, things can be rescheduled, and I would rather reschedule a tour and have everyone that had tickets to the shows, you know, be able to actually come to the show and be, you know, healthy and, you know, not having to deal with any issues. And I would never want to be a like band that's putting fans' lives in jeopardy, you know, because at the end of the day, it's like, come see us when it's fine, you know, like not like, you know, but hopefully, you know, we'll see what happens. It's like so out of our hands that, you know, and I think fans understand that. And that's why it was important for us to put the record out on time and not delay anything. And in a weird way, like there's a real captive audience because a lot of people are home just kind of like waiting for things to happen. And, you know, we definitely have some plans for the release week, assuming that Alex and I can get to Florida and everything's cool with that. Like, we definitely have some plans of things we'd like to do that week. You know, obviously Matt's been twitching for like the last 3 years. So I feel like if anything, all of that experimenting we've been doing with that over the last few years, like, you know, streaming shows and having like our soundboard mix set up for streaming and all that kind of stuff has like definitely paid off, in that we're prepared for doing stuff like that, you know. So hopefully we can get that out for the release week, you know, and give people some more things to watch while they're at home.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. I guess Metallica is doing Metallica Monday, and I noticed it on Facebook. I was watching a little bit of it, and then, you know, there's 20,000 people watching that. And then I think, you know, when Code Orange did their CD release, they did a show, and there was a few, you know, thousands of people watching that. So I mean, I think it's definitely a good time to kind of take advantage of that. And Matt, of all people, is definitely equipped for this kind of a time period, you know, with all the Twitch streaming that he does. Yeah,
we're definitely going to be doing some stuff. You know, the plan is we'd like to do some like live streaming show stuff that we would want to do, and you know, it's gonna come down to if it's possible to do, if it's safe to do, those kind of things are still, going to be the guiding factors for us. But if we can't do what we're planning to do, I'm sure we'll come up with a plan B. And, I think we're able to kind of adapt with stuff, and, that's just how we are. We're always, something's not working, we're going to figure something else out. And, that's all you can do.
Absolutely, man. Well, as we kind of wrap this one up, man, are you hunkered down wherever you are and, got all your toilet paper and everything that you need?
Yeah. I'm from Florida, South Florida, and we get hit with hurricanes a lot. So I have this sort of natural, disaster preparation thing in me from just having to get ready for stuff at the last minute. So I feel like the day that the city in China, Wuhan, went on lockdown, I was like, okay, it's time to start getting ready. We hadn't even canceled our tours and stuff yet, but it was just kind of I'm going to get a couple masks. I'm going to get a bunch of cleaning supplies. And then pretty much every week until the tour got canceled, I was just going to the store and getting a couple things here and there that's just to kind of put in the freezer and just have stored. And, once things really got serious and it was okay, well, things are, going to affect us now. We had most of our supplies already bought and we didn't have to rush out or anything like that when it was the madhouse. So I feel good about that. I feel like the paid off being, just so overly prepared with Florida hurricane season that it paid off. And now I'm in Chicago, so we don't have hurricanes, but now we have pandemics. So that's what we're dealing with.
Nice. Yeah, I was looking at flights the other day just because everybody's talking about how cheap they are, and I'm down here in Louisville, and there was a round trip for two people to Chicago and back was right under $200. I was like, good Lord, so cheap right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember a couple weeks ago I was flying back because we rehearsed for our Asian tour. We didn't know if it was going to happen, but we did anyway just to be ready. And I had my mask and I was on the plane and I wiped down my seats with Lysol and all that. And everyone's looking at me kind of weird. I'm like, this is going to be all of you in a few weeks. I'm like, just get ready. I'm like, cause in Asia, when we go over there, everyone wears masks all the time. It's just kind of I think it's just, over having to deal with pandemics in the past, people kind of just picked up that, hey, it's good to wear a thing over your face if you're in a crowded area or if you're sick. And I hope after maybe this, maybe that'll be something that people pick up, hey, it's probably a good idea to, wear some masks, especially if you're sick and not feeling well, and, think about the people around you, which, that seems to be the tough thing for people, not thinking about yourself.
Oh yeah.
Thinking about the other person around you that maybe won't be capable of, maybe being safe for whatever reasons.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, this is America, man. You can't tell me we're no mask. You get that a lot.
Yeah. yeah. It's definitely one of those, it's, kind of running up against a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, but hopefully, you just hope that people, for me, it's even if you think it's overblown or whatever, at this point, it's why risk it? You know what I mean? I would rather be wrong for being more vigilant about it than the other way. If I'm wrong for being more worried about it, then whatever, everything's going to be great, and it is what it is. It's when the hurricane gets close and it moves at the last minute. It's you lucked out and you're thankful that it didn't, but it's I'd like to tour this summer. So, if you want to see the touring this summer, I would just take it serious and just, what do you got to lose at this point if you can,
Well, with you being from Florida, I mean, one of the first times that it really hit that this is a big deal is when Disney World closed down. And those guys aren't going to close down for anything.
Yeah.
I mean, this has to be serious.
Disneyland, they said for Disneyland, it's only closed 3 other times. And it was 9/11, JFK assassination, and one other, the earthquake in LA.
Okay, yeah.
After the Northridge or something, so that's definitely a pretty big thing. I thought the thing that kind of turned the tide for people taking it serious, I feel like, was the NBA thing, which I think maybe it had to happen to like really be like, oh wait, yeah, this is no joke now. So, you know, sometimes got to hit really close to home and and hit the things you like, to make you kind of listen up.
Yeah, when networks are canceling things that would net them $1 billion, you know things are serious.
Yeah, definitely, and always better to be safe than sorry.
Well, absolutely, man. Well, you know, I've got the new album. I think it's fantastic from start to finish. You know, What the Dead Men Say. I don't have a release date. Do you have the release date in front of you?
The release date is April 24th.
Okay.
And that is confirmed, and we're not delaying it, so you will be hearing that when it's out that day. Well,
absolutely. Well, that's awesome. And let's end this with Catastrophist. I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit more, but do you have any other little nuggets for the listeners before we get into Catastrophist?
I just hope you guys are ready for a lot of riffs, because we made sure to pack the album full of them. And if you like what you've heard from Catastrophist and What the Dead Men Say, when you hear it in the next few days, I think you're going to like what we did on this one.
Very cool. Well, Paolo, man, thanks for taking the time. Be safe, you know, and stay inside.
Yeah, you too.
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Cycles feeding back again. Conserve and free to generate. We damage just to liberate. Bought and sold before we could even breathe. I feel like we're falling a life under son of our reach. I feel like collapsing the air and get numb to our needs. You're a catastrophe. catastrophist. You stole our innocence.
What's up, everybody? Rob Rivera from the band Nonpoint and from the Robcast podcast, here doing my weekly Rob's Pick from the Kit. This week we're featuring the band Life of Agony. So the song we're going to focus on is a song Through and Through, which is the very first video I ever saw from Life of Agony. I remember seeing it on Headbangers Ball many years back, and when it started, like, it had this really eerie bass line going on with a ooh yeah, that part, and I thought it was really cool. I said, man, what is this? And it turned into this whole hardcore style, but with singing, like melodic singing, but the hardcore vibe and intensity behind it, and still one of the best records that's ever come out. River Runs Red, an amazing album. So anybody has not heard Life of Agony's old material, check out their debut. They just put out a recent new one. The name escapes me, and I actually have not heard it. But that first Life of Agony album is amazing. I got to see them live on the Ozfest. Unfortunately, Mina was not singing. It was Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe was singing for Life of Agony at that time. And they made a few records together. I wasn't really following around that time, but I was so in love with that first album of theirs that you definitely should check this out. If they're coming to your area, definitely go check it out. Do not pass up on seeing Life of Agony. So anyway, here is Life of Agony with Through and Through.
Got that look in your eye, girl, it's working overtime. Worried about where I'm gonna spend my life. But the most you let us in, the most you let us in, the most you let us all freaking fight. Say, where you been, where you from, where you going to, where you going to, where are you going? 'Cause I'll be right here. And you wait, just
right, once again, huge thank you to Paolo from Trivium for taking the time, coming on the show, filling us in on everything that is What the Dead Men Say. Make sure you guys are checking that out April 24th, Roadrunner Records. And if you see them out and about on tour, hopefully they get to do the tour with Megadeth, Lamb of God, those guys, and In Flames. And if you see them on that tour, make sure you let them know that you check them out on the Talk To Me podcast. So, for the Talk To Me podcast, I've been Joshua Toomey, and I will talk to you guys next Thursday.